Hello. Welcome back to another video. This is the Shadowcast, the podcast discussing all things hidden in the shadows. I am the Living Shadow, and we're going to get started as soon as I press the button here. Hello. Welcome back. This is the Shadowcast, the podcast discussing all things hidden in the shadows. I am your host, the Living Shadow, and we're going to get started. Okay, so today I really want to talk about really several things, but primarily I want to really stick to male social circles and male empowerment. I believe I've talked about it before in previous episodes, but those were like years ago, and of course things have changed now when new data has come out now and things of that nature. There's so many things to discuss, so keep in mind I'm going to really try to have an AI episode because Google and Microsoft both have their conferences recently. And so the new improvements and changes to AI are going to be predominantly world-changing for us, and I think that it deserves its own episode on the podcast. Because again, I want to talk about things that are hidden that a lot of people don't discuss, or people I feel like don't discuss enough, or I have not seen enough. You may have seen too many arguments like this. I have not. And all the arguments I've seen about this are relatively new. For me personally, I've spoken about male empowerment and male marginalization for years now. I even wrote a paper in college about it. It's a big deal to me as somebody who was genetically born with male parts. It's important to me because I feel like we live in this world where every day more and more men don't really know what their role is in life because they're being told so many different things. I have this theory, you may or may not agree, but I believe there's way more different types of men than there are women. And I say that not to be, misogynistic or anything like that. I say that to mean that from my perspective, and again, I want to preface this by saying a few things here. Number one, I was adopted. The woman who adopted me is a boomer. With probably an even older mindset, which I will get into mindset age probably deeper into this episode, because I have a theory I want to talk about, or something I want to talk about. I'm also asexual, so I feel like that could have a pretty big factor in this, because when I talk about this, most people talk about relationships between men and women and things like that, and I think my viewpoint might be skewed because of my asexuality. I think that definitely can skew my viewpoint. So again, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, or everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt. But I really want to start off with that being said. There was no dad in my life growing up. Never really wanted one. So when we're talking about men and the way men are raised, I definitely have a viewpoint based off of my life and the lives of people who I've seen around me, and the lives of people who have been around me, that promote certain things, and that I feel like we shared a sort of collective experience. But when I say that there are, I feel like there are fewer different types of women than there are of men. and I don't mean that to say like, oh, this, like, I don't really know how to describe that in the best way possible, but I feel like, if we go to the personality breakdown, for some people who know, there's some people who don't, there are supposedly 16 personality types, right? They're lettered off between introvert, extrovert. I'm gonna look it up. Okay, personality type, so I can explain it properly. But they're really broken up. Why is this not? I hate Facebook. I swear to you. But they're broken up by different things. And depending on what kind of personality type you are, you know, different things work better or worse for you, obviously. I personally am more of an NFJ. Here we go. This is what I was looking for. So we have the N for intuitive and thinking personalities, F for feeling personalities, S for observant, observant, like you see things, you observe. J for judging types of personalities. Oh my god, why is this computer loading up stuff I did not ask for? And P for prospecting personalities. So really N, T, F, S, J, P. Those are like the 5 letters. And usually it's either I or E for introvert or extrovert. So you can be like an introverted, intuitive person, or you can be an extroverted, observant person, things like that. Okay. So when I say that, I feel like there's more diverse types of men than there are of women, and that is more than likely not necessarily even true, but it's just what I've happened to come across, or what I've happened to see, is that there are way more like of these personality types. If you're not aware, there's 16 I guess main ones or big ones, and I'm sure that, I'm sure in life in general, as we progress and we move on, there may not be 16, but for the most part, there's 16 personality types, and that's what you'll see. So I feel like I see fewer dispersion of those personality types among women than I do among men. I feel like there's way more diverse, there's way more men with these different personality types than there are women, and I'm not saying that there's not either one, it's just my personal life and experiences, okay? What I want to talk about today, again, is male empowerment, things like that. There's been lots of studies that come out in the last couple years, and again, lots of books and knowledge and interviews that I've seen, really talking about the change in human behavior as far as for things like sex and companionship go. Men are a lot less likely to have sex nowadays, also a lot less likely to go out and be social, a lot less likely to have friends, a lot less likely to do a lot of things that we typically think that people would just do in general, or we would think men would do in general that they don't do. And a lot of people ask questions about that, things like that. As an asexual person, I will tell you, for me, growing up, not having sex was so strange to me, because everybody around me was like, by comparison, everybody around me was a sex addict. Like, all the time, every day. If I miss a day, it's like the end of the world. And for me, I go years. Like, like literally like years at a time. And I recently heard of this term called incel. It's been around for a long time. An incel is somebody who is, it's short for involuntarily celibate. where it's like you don't choose to not have sex, people just don't really want to have sex with you. There's variations of the term. If you're a gay person, they call them gay cells instead of incels. A lot of the incel terminology is also laced with men who are, I guess, angry and possibly even violent or misogynistic towards women because they don't get sex. I don't really want to focus on that part in particular. I just, we see this over and over again now in society where men are dating less, men are going out less, men are fucking less. And it's, I think, scary to a lot of people. I know it's definitely got to be scary to the anti-abortion people, right? Like the people who... to me, the anti-abortion people are the people who don't really give a fuck about your quality of life. And to me, the anti-abortion and anti-suicide people kind of go hand in hand, which I will get into in a second. But it's like they don't really care about your quality of life. They just want to be alive. And there's this other video I was watching talking about like a suicide-friendly website, which I gotta be honest, from my point of view, does not sound horrible. I've constantly said I think the earth is overpopulated, and I think that suicide is kind of natural, to be honest. I don't really think that it is something to be afraid of or feared. I don't necessarily encourage people to do it, but if that's something that you're thinking about doing or something that you're going to do, then I as somebody who thinks about suicide a lot, I don't think the automatic response is to tell someone not to do it. And that, I know that's controversial to a lot of different things and things that people have said, but I really just don't. What we find in research and studies is that more men than women commit suicide. Like more men want to, more men are about that. Let me go to the study here. So this is a study from afsp.org, where it says that suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in the U.S. There's lots of more suicide attempts. Men died by suicide almost 4 times more than women do. Men kill themselves more often than women do. A lot of it has been white men, honestly. But my point in that is saying that if you're the type of person who believes that suicide is wrong for people, then this is really, I think, going to be very eye-opening for you as to what would lead a man to even think that way or want to do that. As somebody who has thought about suicide a lot, and I bring up the incel thing and the sexuality thing because what's been shown is that a lot of incel people, incel males, will do that. Or think about it, or put that out there that they would want to, the quality of life is well for them, and they don't want to live it because of their lack of quality of life. I think that the feminist movement that has happened, whereas it has brought about a lot of positive things, and I have said this before, and I will probably continue to say this until I see a difference, it's also left men in a really horrible spot, because in the whole ideology for a lot of people for a lot of lives has been based off of gender roles and things that men are supposed to do, things that women are supposed to do. And I have long-lasting theories, and I think my biggest theory, and the one I really want to express to you all today, is not that men have fragile egos, because I feel like I've been I've heard that so much to the point where I'm like, I don't even think that you all even really recognize what you're saying when you say that. Men definitely have problems. I'm not going to say that men don't have any problems. Men definitely have problems. I think men have way more and way deeper problems going back for eons than people or people, either men or women, want to admit. But I think more so than anything that these problems have shown themselves in ways that I don't think people really understand the gravity of the situation. So one of the things I was reading about is how women are more likely to graduate college now than men. Women do make a lot more money now. They made the gap in pay wage has closed up. Versus in the 70s. From interviews and research that I've taken in from other people who have done the hard numbers. And back in the 70s, it was like 13% of women went to college and got paid a decent and got paid a decent amount. Now it's more like 40%, so the gap is closing. But what we see is also men are less likely to have sex. People are less likely to get married. This idea of human connection has kind of died. And you kind of wonder why, right? So, again, historically, it's kind of been where men have the power, in quotation marks, of course. If you watch the video, there is a video to this podcast. Do check it out on my YouTube. Links in the description below. But what is stopping this social what is stopping people from being more social with each other? And the pandemic, I think people want to blame that. I think this has been on the track from way before then. It's just that it got brought to people's attention then. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like, again, as an asexual person, I really don't even date. Like, it's just not any one of those things. So a lot of these categories I would fall into as somebody who doesn't have sex, somebody who doesn't date, this is that. And so it's like, for me, I have to like explain this. Like, I think the male, like a lot of the things we talk about when we talk about women empowerment, this is that. Like, I was watching this podcast episode and they were talking about, like, you know, men often commit suicide, and when men commit suicide, they often place that, or they often leave in their notes that they feel worthless or useless or unnecessary, or like they don't feel like they have a purpose as much anymore. And I think that is primarily not because of the women's movement, but because of the women's movement in lack of regards to changing how we treat men. I think we spent a lot of time changing how we treat women, changing how we view women, but men for the large part have not. They're you know, the view and the opinion, the stereotypes of men have not really changed over the years, to the point where now the data is changing so much that we're kind of forced to have to accept that that things are changing, and we have to change our opinion because the data does not support the opinions that we've had in the past. So my personal opinion of the far away past is that men, it's ingrained in our society that, you know, for the longest, people, I think from the woman's point of view, which is what I think we hear more often, because women are more vocal than men in a lot of instances, we hear about men being, you know, having all the power and it's being unfair and this, that. What I see in real life is that women really have kind of always had the power, and now they're able to use it in the same way a man has been able to use their power. But it's always been women have the most power. A lot of studies and things that you'll find out is that, I'm a big fan of evolution, Darwinism, things like that, and a lot of things that get discussed in those type of spaces are that people evolve, men evolve, society and culture change because of sex, right? And historically, it's always been the same kind of story where, as much as people kind of know this, it doesn't seem to really be talked about. Men are very, very desperate, way more desperate than women. It's been pointed out several times that men will change for a woman. Women don't really change for men. Women were told and taught to do that. And again, my theory, my overarching theory about this is that for the longest amount of time, men's insecurities have really been projected upon women. And now I think that because of this feminine movement, because of women stepping up to the plate to do a lot of the things that they weren't able to do before, they're really, I think men and women both are really starting to see how unprogressive men have been, or masculinity has been in over the years, right? My theory is that for the longest, to hide this, or I don't even want to say to hide it, because I don't feel like it's really being hidden. If anything, I feel like it's put more front and center, but I think a lot of people would assume it's being hidden. So the double standards and things, of course, come through. But I think the double standards come from a different place than a lot of people think. Like, I think a lot of women think that that men want to be in control of them, and this is that. And through psychology and through things like that, you learn that if you have a need to be in control of somebody else, generally that comes from you feeling like you don't, like there's something missing in you, insecurities, lack of something. So overall, this whole long story arc of men and women in relationships, and how men treat women and how women are go about life, really seems to be off of this idea that a lot of people maybe just now are coming to a realization about with the rise of mental health talks and discussions. But it seems to me like, okay, so like a man, like, a lot of people talk about like a man wants a woman in the house, this is that, right? A lot of women seem to talk about it like they just want to be in control of me, they just want to tell me what to do, and they don't really take it as, okay, but this man is scared you will leave him and is desperate to try and make sure you don't go anywhere. And that may be a thing, some women do realize that, this is that and the third, but I don't think they realize how deep that goes and how deep that is ingrained in society. I mean, it's, to me, like when I hear Adam and Eve, when I hear the Bible, when I hear things like this, these things are glaring at me, right? If you take the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible, Adam was lonely. Adam wanted somebody. God made Eve because Adam needed Eve. There was nowhere, of course, if there's a Bible verse that tells a different story, please let me know, put it in the comments, tweet me, whatever. But there was no Eve needs Adam. The only thing that Eve probably would have needed Adam for was sperm. And overall, like the course of history, it's kind of shown that type of thing, whereas I don't think that the codependency in men has been really highlighted as much as it should be, because in my experience, men are way more codependent than women. Men need women more. If you talk to married men or you talk to married guys, one of the first things that they will say is that, they need their wife, the wife has improved them, the wife has made them better, this is that. Like, to the point where a lot of these dudes, and again, I'm not a straight guy, so it's like I don't really understand it as much, but they really need that like the woman's touch type thing, right? It's not come off the same way as a woman needing a man. Over the years and stuff, you know, a lot of women are fighting back against this notion that they need a man, because the way that a male insecurity or masculine insecurity has kind of come out over the years is that, oh, well, I need you, so the only way I know to keep you is to try and shut down your options, control you. Control is the only way to keep, and it's not, it's either control or choice, which I believe we talked about in an episode previous, but what is shown to be is more along that line. So without this control, women are not really choosing these men, and of course there's gay movements and things like that, obviously. But what I really want to talk about was just that over time you really see that men are the ones who need women more than women need men. So what are we, when we're going into this world where women are, if you look at the data today, women are getting out of college more, women are passing college more, women are going to college more, women are getting paid more, women are taking more of these higher up positions, and even in my own life, I've seen people, it's like women are, they do all this stuff, they're mothers, they're business women, they're this, they're that, all this kind of stuff. And they just seem to, be able to move and do more things than men tend to do. But I think that it's also in studies that women take more risks. They do the things that have been typically associated with masculinity. And this is where I feel like the point of it gets really hard to discuss, because for the longest time we've talked about toxic masculinity, and I think it's harped on to the point where if you're a guy today and you don't want to be toxically masculine, you want to be whatever, like you want to show that you're respectful, the nice guy syndrome pops up where girls don't want nice guys. It shows over and over again. If you are it's really hard to find a balance for a man, because it's hard. Like I said, there are different types of women, there are different types of men. What I've come to, if you see dating apps, right? We talking about men dating and sex and things like that. Dating apps, the data over the course of time now has come out to say there are more men on dating apps than women. So of course, if you're in like straight relationships, things like that, women have a better choice. Women have a better pick of the litter, because there are more men, and there are more men who are going to be after women. A lot of women. I don't know how to really say this. Like you can get a guy probably. I don't like the days of men don't want this out of me. I don't hear that story anymore. Like I don't hear the story of I'm fat so guys don't want me. There you can go to a forum or a place. There's probably even specialized apps for if you are a bigger person, for someone that wants you. If you there's so many different things out there. Like it's so available. The other thing I really wanted to say is that like standards have just changed completely. And by that, what I mean is that, what a guy wants in a woman versus what a woman wants in a man. So what a guy wants in a woman, I think, it's generally been the same thing. They just want someone to be there with them. But, and of course, sex and babies and things like that, obviously, depending on who you are and what kind of dude you are. But for the most part, I think men are more so wanting the companionship than they would like to admit, or they would like to let the woman know. But what happens is that, women don't really, what a man wants out of a woman has been relatively the same, it seems like, but what women want out of men is so different, and it's completely changing. In a sense, and in a sense it doesn't. Like, it's so interesting to me that I think most men that I've dealt with, or most men that I know of, who were trying to be respectful, who were trying to be the good guy, who were trying to be an ally, trying to be a feminist, trying to, really put out there that they understand women, get the nice guy effect, where they don't really get the girl that they want because the girl thinks that they're not even into them or something like that. It's like, because you're trying to be nice and cordial and chivalrous or whatever. Women, they go after the jerks because they feel like, okay, if the jerk is nice to me, then they want me or something. It's really weird. It's really strange. I mean, straight couples are strange to me anyway. The gay couples are too, but straight couples are really strange to me. But what we see is a sense of, where do I fit in at now, right? I was watching this podcast where, and yes, I've watched the videos of podcasts. I was watching this podcast where the man was talking about his wife, and it kind of confirmed things that I have thought for a while, whereas it's not that, I think in the world that people kind of imagine, or in the world that we're kind of in right now, right? We got this feminist movement. It used to be like men were up here and women were down here, in the sense of like value or things like that. That's what it was sort of told on to us. I think that in the beginning there was a lot more equality in various different ways, versus now, where the equality might be in more of a business aspect, in more of a financial aspect, as far as like, women will make the same amount of money as men more do now, and things like that. And so again, I feel like it's so natural to balance the scale, right? And this is where I feel like this is, and I know 30 minutes in, it's like getting to the point, but I don't think we're balancing that scale correctly. I really don't. I don't think we're balancing that scale correctly. And I think the major problem is because men don't know how to properly balance that scale. Because if you think about it, really, for eons, we were all told the exact same thing for years and 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 years. Yes, that long. All men are told the same thing. All men are told not to show emotion, not to cry. We got to be strong. We got to do this. We got to do that. And I think for a lot of people, they don't like. I still think that, people are saying that. It's still true to this day. People still say that. People still tell men that. People, parents still tell their young boys these things. But increasingly, over and over again, it's hard to figure out how to do that, where to do that, when to do that, when to be that person, because, or what that person even looks like, because that person to somebody else can be toxic. This person who takes charge in a meeting can be seen as toxic to a woman who wants to pitch, or has possibly pitched the same idea that you've pitched, and now you just look like you stole it from her and you're just whatever, but you're trying to take charge. And in the podcast I was watching, the man had his wife, and his wife was saying basically that it's like, it's not that you don't respect me, it's that I want you to just be a more masculine man, be a stronger man, take charge more, do those things. And the guy was like, if I, the guy normally, and I mean, it's strange to me because over all of these years, if you ever hear guys, they always will say you, oh, now that I'm married, I'm stuck with this woman, everything is her decision, this is that, whatever else. And to me, I feel like there's such a power dynamic that's there that that people don't really discuss or talk about, but it's like, that's right there in front of your face. Like, most married, like straight married men I've talked to or been around or dealt with for whatever reason, whether it was me trying to sell them insurance or something else, or customer service, or just a friendly night out, or whatever the case may be, it's usually like men really simp. Like they get like, I don't see, as much as people want to push the alpha male, I do not see the alpha male, except in situations where if you like, and honestly, like selling that insurance, of course, there's salesmen and people. The salesmen people I met were a lot of alpha male type people, or people who wanted to be alpha males or perceived themselves to be that way. A lot of them were either single or had marital problems, and it's interesting to me because women really, like I said, there's not that women really tend to want certain things out of a man. And it's interesting because looking at all these studies and things like that, of course, women get to pick whoever men they want to be with, versus men who kind of get whatever they can. Women get what they want, men kind of get what they can, type of thing. And I don't like that aspect of it, but it does seem to ring true. But what shows a little bit more often is that men are not even being raised to be that way anymore. As I said, I prefaced this by saying earlier in the episode that I was raised by a single mother. She's a boomer, things like that. And what I've seen in a lot of males who were raised by a single mother, not necessarily that they didn't have their father around, so they didn't learn this and that or whatever else. What I've seen in a lot of men who were raised by single mothers is that the mother really, really, really wanted to raise their little boy into being the man they would have wanted growing up, and not the man that they are. Does that make sense? Like, if you have a single mother, it's like the mother will raise you to be the guy that she wanted, or the guy that she thinks women want. And it's not even to be the guy that you are, but be the guy that women that she thinks women want, right? So a lot of women do speak on they want a more sensitive guy, they want this, they want that, right? And I think a lot of women raise, especially single women, will raise their men to be that way in that way, shape, or form. And I think that women really do want that, but I don't think they want that to the degree that men have been taking it in, because we hear it so much. And as I said before, most of evolutionary science is based off sex. So if a guy thinks he's going in, and this is talked about in a lot of different podcasts and books and things like that too. Like, if a guy thinks that being more sensitive will get him laid, that he's gonna at least attempt to be more sensitive just to get laid. Now, in actuality, and by these numbers, men being more sensitive does not get them more laid. And it's crazy to me because, if you are around guys from a group of guys or straight guys, they will probably all tell you the same thing, is that women say one thing and want another thing. And so from guys learning this, it's all over everywhere. There's so many movies. Like the pickup artist type guy, this is that, the men who are jerks, this and that, It's so funny because it's like, that's really who the women really go to. They don't go to the sensitive guy. They may want the sensitive guy, and I venture to say that it's really more of a marriage versus a hookup thing. Like, if you wanted to hook up, if you want to get laid, be a jerk. If you want to get married, be sensitive. If you want to get laid, be the jerk guy, because the jerk guy is probably gonna, get the smash. if you are a sensitive guy, or if you want to get married, then it's time to be sensitive and thoughtful and emotional and chivalrous and whatever and actually care. But if you just want to fuck, then don't care, because it's kind of shown us over time that's how things are. But what I'm saying about the mother thing is that from me doing research on emotional incest, I feel like that really plays a big part in men's relationships with women. Is that if you were, and a lot of men were, not everybody, of course, obviously, but I think in today's world, there are a lot of men who either are now or have been raised by single mothers, for whatever way, shape, or form. I think in today's age, if you are being raised by, if you're a boy or somebody who's being raised by a single mother, from my perspective and from what I've seen, chances are your mother didn't want the dad around versus the dad not wanting to be around, which I think, in the past we were always told the story of the men didn't want to be around, they just wanted to hit and quit it one time. And I don't really see that being the case nowadays. Nowadays if a guy has a kid with you, they want to be there for the kid in one way, shape, or form or another. And if they're not, it's usually because the mother the baby mama doesn't really want them around as much. But what I think this creates, when a mother really wants the child to be the type of man that they think women want, number one, it depends on the age of your mindset. So I alluded to this a little earlier, but I believe there's your physical age and your mindset age. I think I have a relatively more modern / futuristic mindset, even though I may have an older body. I think that there are a lot of people, especially who I was raised by, who have an old body and an older mindset. So by the body age, my mom is 75. The woman who raised me is 75. I was adopted, as I said before. So she's a boomer, she's 75, and she has an old mindset. And I think it's even, a lot of ways, it's even older than a regular boomer mindset for a lot of things. But it's interesting to me, when I meet people, or when I deal with people because of the age difference, what I find is most of the people who I deal with, or who, or even women who I end up being friends with, are usually single mothers, or they're usually people who are older than me, who were raised by a mother who was the same age as my mother. So again, my mom is 75, so that would mean people in their 40s and 50s, and maybe late 30s, but usually the 40s and 50s, and late 30s are the people who I tend to get along with, in a sense, or become friends with. Not that there aren't people who are my age that to be friends with. It's just that I think with that kind of upbringing, I can relate more to those people. So I don't really relate to people my age. And we're going to take a second here because I got to start a new recording for the podcast. But yeah, so I just think that is a big facilitating factor into who you connect with. I know a lot of people who, if I know a lot of guys who were raised by either single mothers or older mothers, and they're they get along with people's grandma and things like that really well. I think much more to a degree than they even do with people their own age. And I think it's just a mindset difference in that there was another thing that he said in one of these episodes of podcasting, and he was talking about parenting, and that like a lot of older people, and I can attest to this, weren't, there's emphasis more on parenting now than it was then. I when I say I testify to this, I truly believe that there's a difference in child raising and child development now versus then. And again, I say this because my mother is a boomer and she's old, and like the way that she thinks and does things are just not the way that they happen today. And I don't feel like I was really set up for the world of today. But in the world of today, there are a lot more two-parent households, if you can afford to get a house. But there are a lot more two-parent households. There are a lot more emphasis on raising. I'm gonna say this, and I hope you all catch what I'm saying. There's more emphasis in raising insert name here than raising a little boy or a little girl. And by that, what I mean is a lot of parents today are more, I want to listen to what my child wants so that I can be a better fit for my child, or my child has a better chance of fitting into this world. Whereas the old parenting style is, children should be seen and not heard, as in you don't speak, you don't do anything, you just take whatever the fuck we give you. And that is just astronomically, I think, changing people. Like, the generation of kids growing up under that old ideology, and again, I think the mindset age is so much older. The old ideology of that, and again, I feel like, the same thing that women have been saying for years is what that be seen and not heard thing is to me. Like, oh, okay, so like a woman's just supposed to be there. Like the idea of a trophy wife, or this idea of that you just sit there and you sit there and look pretty. To me as a kid, that's what was placed upon me. I don't see that being placed upon these kids nowadays. I mean, of course, you got to go get a job and this is that, and I think that's kind of healthy. But what I'm talking about is the idea that you're supposed to be an individual. That was not there before. I don't see that. I don't hear people talk like literally the idea that you're raising. Let's say your child's name is Connor, or it sounds like a really white boy name. I'm trying to get like a racially androgynous name, but I don't think there really is one like that. We'll just go with Connor. So it's like, if Connor is being raised in 1970, Connor is just being raised to be a guy. Like, you're supposed to like cars and women, and you're supposed to take charge and be assertive and all this different type of stuff, versus being raised in 2020. Connor is supposed to be Connor, so Connor has to figure out what Connor likes and what Connor wants, and it's more of the parents' job to just aid Connor. That may not sound like a big difference to you. To me, it's a monumental difference. And I feel like that's a monumental difference in that, because Connor, in this particular example, 70s Connor, may not have to worry, doesn't worry necessarily. I don't know how to say this. It's like the 70s Connor is not worried about being respectful to women. He may be worried about fucking women, but not really being respectful. 2020 Connor is trying to be respectful. I don't even think it's necessarily a try. I think they're naturally are way more respectful, honoring, more empathetic. But that again leads me to the point of like at this point is Connor. How do I put this the right way? I don't know how to say it the right way. So there's this idea out there that if you're without a dad in your life, that you'll end up being gay, or that's why other guys are gay, because they don't have dads in their lives, or they don't have a strong male figure. I think, if anything, I think men don't have a strong male figure regardless. And the idea of a strong male figure varies so much between a man and a woman. I think a strong male figure, according to a man, is a completely different person than a strong male figure according to a woman. And again, I will pull from my own life. I've said this before, I never really wanted a dad. It's not something like you don't miss what you never had. It's not something that I'm like, oh my God, I wish I had a dad to show me this and to show me that. I think that women, what's shown to me is that women believe that, men need a strong male role model or whatever. They need the men to show them how to get a girl, or this is that. I don't really think that that's what guys are looking for in a strong male figure. When you think of a strong male figure, like I know it, like if my mom were to think about a strong male figure, it's like a back in the day strong male figure, like somebody who I don't want to say like a misogynist or anything like that, but like it's a different breed of person. Like as a guy, the kind of strong male figure I want to see is someone who is business successful. And I don't mean like the richest person. I just mean like they have a good work-life balance and they make a decent amount of money. I think that is way harder to find. I think about somebody who, again, to me, I don't think like picking up women or having sex with women is necessarily the thing I would look for in a father figure type role. But again, if you are a woman, and I feel like if you're trying to find like a male role model for your son, you may want, a guy that does certain things that they don't really do. And like I said, guys are told for years not to cry, To me, a strong male figure is a guy who does cry when they have to. Maybe not necessarily be on every single instance, but can cry and is willing to cry, and it's not like, oh, I have to be limited because I'm a guy. I can just be who I am. But we don't really teach guys to be who they are. We teach guys to be, if anything, to be fake. A lot of times we teach guys to be fake. And I don't really know how to say that in a way that people understand what I'm talking about, because like I said, I definitely feel that in this era where we're talking about how men don't really know what to do, in a sense. There was another podcast I was listening to with somebody who was a sexual professor, and she was talking about how, a lot of choking is on the rise, and men will choke women more often during sex, and women either like it, don't like it, whatever. But if you're not used to sex, you probably won't I mean, I imagine that if you are a woman and you meet a guy and he starts to choke you, you wouldn't want to be bothered with him. But the guy is like, I'm really trying to please you. And again, I will say this, like, men are way bigger people pleasers than women. I think men are I think men are more empathetic than women. I think men are more sensitive than women. And in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms, the toxic masculinity that men are told has been reinforced by the idea that the type of quote unquote toxic guys or toxically masculine guys are really the ones that women want. Versus, it may not be what they say, but that's where when you crunch numbers, that's where they go to. And it's just, how do you fit in? How do you be a guy in today's world? How do you be sensitive, but not too sensitive, but not to the point where, you're not being yourself, but to a point where you're still showing off a good impression. And I think what has come to fruition is that most people, or most guys I would say, have kind of given up the race in a lot of sense. They've given up the idea of, okay, I gotta eat. As you get older, especially, you give up the idea of, well, if I want to get a woman, I have to do this, and this. And it has kind of become, well, if a woman doesn't want me for who I am, then why the fuck should I want her? And this has been a spot that I think a lot of women have been in for years, that men are just now kind of coming to, in the sense that, like, why do I have to change for a woman? And, I know that I feel like I've heard that so many times for women, like, why do I gotta change for a man? I don't want to have to change for a man, this is that, whatever else. But they don't really talk about men having to change for women, and men do that all the time. That's literally from a guy's perspective, that's most of what men do, is change for women. That's like the spectrum in which men have changed over the years has been with that background intention of, I'm changing for a woman, or I'm changing because of women, or I'm changing to be, to get women. And if you take women out of the equation, do men change? Or would men change? And that's scary, because I don't know. I mean, I think that they would. They were talking about, like, I don't know if you know about the Amazons. If you're a DC fan, Wonder Woman was in the Themyscira with the Amazons, and the whole planet of the women. And there's been this idea throughout history, and we've seen it a lot, where there's savage Neanderthal men and advanced utopian societal women, and that's been the thing about it. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think if they were separate, they would be okay. But I think that it would take a lot more work on the men's side of it to be able to be more independent than it would on the women's side, because I think women are I think the data is showing that women are more independent, and over and over again, that the only reason why women were thought of or seen as being less independent is because men wanted them to be that way, to hide their own codependencies, or to hide their own insecurities, or to hide their own things. And this is, again, culturally throughout all these different years, like, especially when you have a culture where a lot of men derive their confidence and their self-esteem from women, from being able to get women, or being able to be around women, or being attractive to women in whatever sense of shape or form. I mean, we still do this to this day. The percentile of men, or a lot of the drive for men to get good jobs and to go to college and things like that is to get a woman. And I think that is severely understated. As the numbers show, men are finishing men are finishing school less, signing up for school less. Women are primarily dominating in the school area front, in education front, and I think a lot of conditioning. I think it's a lot of, nowadays, because, within the same lifetime as my mother's lifetime, she's 75, so within this lifetime, it's more women have gone to college, and they feel like women are trying to make up for lost time. But in the same sense, I feel like it's also showing how much men don't really want that pressure that they've been given, That women, I don't think, really understand that idea of pressure. There's this idea that's been around for a very long time that it's like, you can't hurt a man's ego by trying to make more money than him. I don't think that hurts his ego. I think if anything, there are a lot of codependent men. Women don't really seem to understand that the same guy who does not want you to work or does not want you to make more money than him, or maybe wants you in the kitchen or something like that, is the same guy that is afraid that you will leave him. That's why he doesn't want that stuff. This is the same guy who thinks he's a slob, or thinks that, he's not really a good catch or something like that. And so if he thinks that you are a better catch, he's not going to want you. Or if he thinks that, you have more options, then he's not going to want to be there because he thinks that you have more options. And so he's just putting himself at risk. Whereas a lot of women seem to not think about it in the sense of, well, this guy, he just wants to control me and do this and that. He doesn't want me to do anything. It's because he's insecure, though. They don't stop to ask the reason why the guy is like that. They just stop at the guy is like that. Whereas for women, men most of the times are taught, if not then they are now, to more along the lines of investigate why a woman is like that, or or even being told how do I put this? It's even being told not to assume that women are one way or the other. But women are a lot of times will assume that for men. I don't know how to. Again, like I said, speech is not necessarily the easiest thing to get across with this, and I'm running out of space for the video. Okay, there's so many more things I want to say. This is a really long episode anyway, but the point of it is that we need to find a space, and we need to find something for men to do. And I definitely, from what I've seen, is that a woman raising a boy to be a man is completely different than a man raising a boy to be a man. And same difference for girls and women and all that stuff, I think that there is a much different emphasis on what should be prioritized. Let me hold on one second. I'm gonna stop the video back up, so they missed a little portion, but it's okay. If you are a man, and again, I don't want to be judgmental, and I probably should have said this a lot earlier than an hour into this, but I don't want to feel like I'm not seeing trans people or non-binary people, even though I don't like the term non-binary. I go with non-singular. Check out that podcast episode. But I don't want to alienate people who have some form of gender dysphoria, if you want to go with that. If that's insulting, I don't mean to insult you. But if you're somebody who doesn't really feel like it's one way or the other, if you're really like a mixture of both, which I think is healthy to be a mixture of both. I think it's more healthy to be that, and I think most people are of that understanding. They just don't know how to get there. And in all honesty, I think that the way that we're going, I don't know if we are on a path to get to equality. It seems like we're on a path for women empowerment like that. I think what has needed to happen even more so than the women empowerment has been the male empowerment. I think the idea is that we have these very unhealthy men. They want to like dominate people. They want to be in control. They do this and that or whatever else. And instead of peeling back the layers, and again, this is probably because men don't seek therapy as much, things like that. But if you want to peel back the layers, it's usually because they're toxic expressions of male insecurity, males not really knowing how to be feminine, because not necessarily that they don't want to be or that they aren't naturally feminine. It's more they're told this, and if they are not doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're seen in a certain light. And I desperately want to put out there that I truly believe that we need to spend way more time individualizing children. I've heard way too many times, way too often, oh, well, Connor's a boy, so Connor should behave like this. It's like, I don't think that there's a proper way to behave if you're a boy. I think that you just gotta be who you are. And if Connor wants to change Connor for whatever reason, like if Connor feels like Connor's not getting enough women and Connor wants to change Connor, that's one thing. But you trying to like alpha male strong arm Connor into being this person, I don't think really works out well for anybody. I don't think it works out well for the woman who he's trying to impress by being this facade of a person. And I don't think that really works out for Connor either, because Connor has spent so much time being who he was told to be that he's not really being himself. And so then to me, the existential question I see a lot of men kind of have, especially with women and especially nowadays, is does she want, like, if I'm with this girl, does she want me for me, or does she want me for what I can do? Like, why does she want me around? Does she want me around because she was told that she wants me around? Any of this, and it's also kind of showing up to be as I'd rather not. Like, I think the same choice that people talk about women having, men also want, but men may not feel like they have the ability to make that choice. I think more people today, in general, men and women, are, as we talk about marriage in a decline, I think they're looking for someone who wants to be with them for who they are. I think that we see a lot of things happening later in life for people now because people are spending more time trying to figure out who they are, or things like that. But I think in the what is shown to me throughout time in history and conversations that people have had is that people were really robots. They were so droned out. Like, having an original thought was seen as being such a negative thing. And I don't know how, it seems like we're changing that now, but I don't know how long it will take before that really has been weeded out, if it gets weeded out. Like, again, or I may have mentioned this in the podcast before, my mother, again, 75 boomer, she had this idea of what a guy should be. So she raised me with the idea of what a guy should be. It was not who I was. So I always wanted long hair. If you watch the video now, I have dreads that are not necessarily long. They're way longer than I would have ever had growing up. But that was a big deal for me, for my identity, for, how I thought about myself. Because I thought guys with long hair were attractive. I always wanted to have long hair. And with my mother basically telling me that guys with long hair are not attractive, I'm like, okay, or are not desirable or things like that. It really made me stop for a second and be like, okay, so what then? And she, of course, would not let me grow my hair. And of course, she'd be like, how did she not let you? Like, she would drag me kicking and screaming to the barbershop. Like, to the point where it's just like, oh my God, like, I wasn't able to be me and I wasn't able to be comfortable. And because I wasn't able to be comfortable, I wasn't able to be who I was, all the stuff that she did to try and make me desirable kind of went out the window, because I never felt desirable, because I never was who I wanted to be. So in translation, in context, it's like, I feel like a lot of these people, especially like, again, single mothers who raised their child to be the man they would have wanted instead of the man that they are really kind of shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, we see over and over again, guys don't want to be bothered with this, or guys don't really want relationships. I also want to put in, I think money, economics, and finances are a big part of this too. Whereas I don't think it's all men just stay at home and don't go out. Men are, I'm sure, probably trying to be at work because the economy is so bad. You need 2 or 3 jobs to do anything nowadays. But I definitely think that in the era that we are now of, we really want to see society improve. The question on what needs improvement and what doesn't is so different than what a lot of people think it is, or what it has been in the past. Like, I don't know what life would be like if I was allowed to be myself. Maybe I would be more sexually active, but I'm again speaking from my own personal life and experiences. I've never had great self-esteem. I still don't, and trying to fake it till I make it does not work for me. If anything, I kind of faked it till I faked it till I broke it. Like, it's not fake it till you make it. It's fake it till you break it in some instances. Like, to the point where it's like, I don't know what to do or who to be or anything like that besides myself. And being myself doesn't get the results that I want either. But I also don't want to be somebody else, or I don't want to be like the monkey I was trained to be. Like, I don't want to cut my hair. If cutting my hair would mean I'm going to get a relationship, I would rather not have the relationship than to cut my hair, because I don't want to, like, if that is true about women that is true about just people in general. Like, if people are not attracted to like guys with long hair, then I'm going to be single, because I would rather have my hair than to do that. And I think that a lot of the people pleasing ways, the kind of fake it till you make it thing, are dying out. In of a sense that we talked about earlier, where a guy will people please to get laid. I don't think a guy's gonna people please to get, like, it's slowly turning into guys not gonna do that to get laid anymore. For what? What's the purpose? Women are not running out to be with a guy anymore, if they ever were in the first place. But I mean, there's been studies that have shown that women don't and even enjoy the sex, and that's generally what the men want of the women. So it's like, It just seems like society and relationships are falling apart because they need to be re-put back together the right way. But I think the right way is so different. Like when I hear those straight guys talking about this and that, it just doesn't seem. It definitely doesn't seem like they are aware of what women say behind closed doors. And again, being the gay friend, I hear what women say behind closed doors. And what women say behind closed doors are completely different than what men say behind. Like, neither one, I feel like neither one, men or women, really know what the other one wants. They're so busy and they're so in their own head thinking that they know, or thinking that, it's a guy, so they're going to want this, and this. When in reality, you haven't met the individual yet, and you haven't really tried to meet the individual. And for a lot of women, I think for men are more likely to try and meet who the individual woman is, and women are more so not likely to do that. They're not likely to take the time to figure out who this man is. They're so busy saying that he's a guy, so he should want this, and this, or, we've over time programmed him to want this, and this. So if I do this, and this, I'll be good. Like, just standard man, And I definitely don't see that being the case. What the research and the numbers have sort of shown to me is that people have got to do a lot better, not in terms of pleasing the other not in terms of pleasing the other person, not in terms of changing themselves for the other person, but in terms of, I don't even want to say finding out what they want, because I think a lot of people do kind of know what they want out of somebody, especially now after the time in the internet and things like that. People can spend that much time looking and figuring out that thing. But what people are not doing is taking, like, if a relationship is what you want, that's what you should be going for. You know what I mean? So there are people who just want a fuck buddy. I think if you want a fuck buddy, then you're going for a fuck buddy, and you're going to approach the situation as a fuck buddy. And if you want a relationship, then you want a relationship. And I think the days of guys specifically, because guys have been known to do this, is to approach it like a relationship because they want a fuck buddy, are kind of over. It's like, why should I have to fake and pretend that I want this out of you when I really want this out of you? And women kind of the same thing. It's like, if you either you get on board or you get off. And I don't know what's the best way to fix this, because it seems like it's kind of fixing itself. And the way it's fixing itself is not the way that people want it to be fixed, because the way that a lot of these people want it to be fixed is just, oh, well, people should just have sex and have more kids. And I'm like, that's definitely not solving the problem. The problem is that these people are together, And it was like, I think it's a long time. Like, people talk about back in the day, that if you were, like, men, like, if people got married or whatever, it was like in their 20s or whatever, they got together like in high school, or they married in college and things like that. I'm like, that is way too early. And it's not too early because of their age. I think it's too early because they haven't experienced life, and it's like being with just a person who's like down the street from you. You may not like that person, but back in the day, that was like all you had, so that was all you had to choose from. In today's world, you can like date someone in Guam, and like that could be the person that you really want. And like it's more along the lines of finding someone who fits you, not just finding somebody. And the codependency, it just seems to be deeper and more methodical than I even like Like, the data is showing it's way deeper than we thought, you know? I had to plug in my vape, but it's just way deeper than we thought. The data is showing that people are not, people are way more loners than we thought. And I don't think that that is necessarily a new phenomenon. I just think that there's a misguided idea of who or what humans are by other humans. When we talk about guys, I said I was going to touch on the incel thing for a second, but when we talk about guys who may not be able to get sex, then, you know, it's like, I don't even know how to put this, like, it's been thought of that, you know, men want sex more than women. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I think men want sex. I think women want sex. I think there's much more equality in that than people think there are. I think there are men who want sex way less than people think, and there's women who want sex way more than people think. And that, honestly, it's about finding, not like, if you find a woman who wants a lot of sex, she's not like an outlier of a woman. That's just who that particular woman is. If you find a man who does not want to have sex, it's not that, oh, you found like the 1 in a million man who doesn't want to fuck all the time. It's no, you just found, like, I don't know, like, you found Ralph, and Ralph is not like that. Like, are you looking for Ralph, or are you looking for a dick? Like, if you're looking for a dick, buy a dildo. If you're looking for a Ralph, then this is what Ralph is. And more along the lines of these kind of issues, it just seems to me like now people are really, really, in a sense, kind of forced to get to know other people for who they are. Whereas before it was just, you know, drony and robotic, and you're just supposed to do it. Like, when I talked to my mom, she just was just like, you know, that's just what you did. You did this and you did that, and you just follow along with whatever was told to you. And these newer generations are like, but why do we have to follow? Because of tradition. What does tradition have to do with anything? Like, why does that apply to me? Tradition says that we have slaves. Tradition says that women get paid less. Tradition tends to be a much more negative concept. So why are we following something that has shown and is proven to us don't work? And a lot of people in today, it really seems like the audience, from the research I've done, is that either they say it doesn't work or it does work. And I think it is working. It just doesn't work the way you want it to work. Like, people are becoming more equal. People are demanding that they want to be loved and cared for and seen for who they are. And people are also having less sex, getting married less, and buying houses less. And I mean, financially, I think there's a part to play in that. But I think primarily it's because people are not settling. And people don't feel like, oh, I just have to follow the path or just be a drone and do what my orders are. People are much more like, I want the life that I want. I don't want the life that you tell me I want. If you have it, and like for me in my life, like, I'm telling you right now, I have been told so much. Like, I have been told who I am so much, to the point where it's like, I mean, I said it earlier, like, I almost feel like I don't even know who I am, because I'm being told who I am and who I'm supposed to be, to a point where no one really listens to me. And I feel like a lot of men can agree with that. And I think that if men do agree with that, then the last thing that they want is a wife or girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever, that is going to treat them that very same way. And it's just, I don't know, like, I've talked about Divergent a lot, where it was automatic that people assumed, if you ever seen the movie or read the book Divergent, they have these different little silos. And like, say you are a farmer, the thought is that if you were raised by parents who were farmers, that you yourself would be a farmer. And if you don't want to be a farmer, it's like, whoa, like, what do you mean you want to do something different? And I think that for the mass of society, they kind of think in that way. Like, if you are a farmer, if your parents are farmers, then you're going to grow up to be a farmer. But what's being shown in these numbers is that if your parents are a farmer, there's a good chunk, if not maybe like straight up halfway down the line, a 50-50 chance that you never want to even go near a farm at all, because you grew up with farming. You want something different, something new. And it's just like old mindsets really have not changed. Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't believe that's true. I feel like you can't teach an old dog with an old mindset, but you can teach I think you can teach an old dog with a newer mindset. Like, you can teach people who are more willing to learn something, but you can't teach people who are not willing to learn. And so many of these people are in that mindset where they are not ready to, like, well, and I wouldn't say that. I think older people are in a mindset where they're like, what do you mean change and be different and learn and grow? That stuff was forced upon me. So when you find younger people who are more like, I want to try something different, this is that, and it's like, but I was forced this way, so I'm going to force this way on you. They don't take well to that. I don't know any young person who takes well to force and control like that. And to me, I mean, of course, like, now, my mother's super controlling anyway, so I'm just gonna put that out there. So again, in my frame of mind where I come from, I see women as a very controlling species in general, and I don't know many women who are not controlling. Like, I don't know many easy breezy, go with the flow type of women. I know most women who are like, you do this, you do that, this, whether they're mothers or whatever the case is, they're not like the stay-at-home white woman Stedford mom wife who just kind of has a dad be a disciplinarian type thing. I never see that. If anything, like, what I see nowadays is the mom is a disciplinarian and the dad's the one you go to if you want, like, to get off easy. Whereas traditionally it's been kind of taught and handed down that it's the other way around. And so, as I said before, like, the data behind the data in the physical manifestation of this in the world is so different than how we were taught for eons and eons, it seems like, that it is really fucking up people, and not in the way of what are we gonna do, we're screwed. I mean, yeah, kind of in that way, because I feel like people don't really know how to handle people in that regard, but more so along the lines of, well, if you're not gonna do what tradition says, then what are you gonna do? And it's like, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna make my own thing. I'm gonna create something new and create new traditions, you know? Like, I don't know. It just seems weird. It's like, when I talk about old mindsets, I mean a sense of, like, these people were not conscious in history class, you know? Like, people who, like, I feel like there's two types of people who are conscious and people who are drones. If you are a drone in history class, you're gonna, like, hear Thanksgiving and go, okay, turkey time, we eat turkey, there was a whole thing with pilgrims, Indians, blah, 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 does not apply to me. Or, excuse me, Native Americans, does not apply to me. But again, if you're an old type of person, you probably would say Indians. If you were conscious during history class, it's like, okay, so you mean to tell me that white men stole this from Native Americans, stole their land, stole their food, this, that, and their attempt at being equal or having peace is to sit down with them and basically, say, hey, let's share the land I just took. It's like that's their form of equality. And it's like that doesn't make, that's not good. I don't know how else to put it, honestly, but it gives me that type of energy where it's like the different perspective that people, I think most people, younger people today share similar perspectives on a lot of things that old people just find mind-bogglingly new. Like, monogamy is new and polygamy is old, but people see it the other way around, but it's not that way. Polygamy is been in culture for years, but people see monogamy as like it's the one true way. I don't think monogamy is the one true way for anything. I think that's part of the reason why we have these problems. But something else, like men being providers, I think that's an old idea, and nowadays we kind of see that women are providers, or being providers, or doing what they have to do. I don't think that diminishes men at all, or women at all. I just think that it's just a different mindset that people are just changing, and it's adopting. It's just growing and it's changing, and we have to sort of figure out how to be in this world now that is so different. And I think that men in general are going to have to do the bulk of the changing yet again, because I think that men are going to have to be the ones to really like define what being a feminist male is. I don't think it's necessarily having to be masculine. I think for a man to define equality and a woman to define equality, for the longest I think we've seen what women define as equality, and we may have seen what men define as equality, even though I don't think that we really have. I think what we've seen is men defining their insecurity and projecting their insecurity. But now that we have a lot more sensitive men because of this women's movement, and really calling them out on the bullshit that they do as a result of their insecurity, I think that now we are going to have to see a change in men, in that we're going to have to see men being able to be who they are, and it has to get to a point where you don't care how the woman feels, so that you can be you. And then women have their turn to take their changes, and they're gonna have to be like, oh well, we really see more diverse men than we thought, and we have to like really shut down this idea that all men are the same, or all men want one thing, or whatever it is. Like that has to break. I don't see any way that this can work without things like these stereotypes really breaking, because the numbers are showing that they've already been broken, and they may not have even existed to begin with in a lot of ways, senses and forms. But this is all I'm gonna do today, because it's already been like way longer than I even thought it was gonna be. I was hoping for 1 hour, now I'm at like 2. So please like, comment, subscribe, and share. If you want to tweet me. If you want to yell at me, whatever. Reach out. I want to thank you all for listening to the episode, especially if you've gotten to this part. Of course, thank you. If you skipped ahead to this part, thank you. But truly, thank you. And I really want to hear your opinions. I just don't want to hear myself all day. Like I said, I've been researching things from different people who have done a lot more research on, again, cold hard numbers. And I don't have all the numbers in front of my face, otherwise I would have recited them to you, but I mean, I will share my sources if you ask, if you want it. I just don't have space and time to do all that stuff. But like, if it's like, I just think that it's important to know where we actually stand and what's actually going on versus what we perceive. And again, I want to use this disclaimer one more time before we go, that these viewpoints are based upon numbers I've seen in my own upbringing and the way I've seen life progress with people. So I mean, I would love to hear a different viewpoint, or someone who was raised differently, especially if you were raised by like a single father. I would love to hear your viewpoint on this type of stuff, and especially the parenting aspect. But I mean, this has been the episode, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like it. If you do, please share it. And yeah, let's change some things. This has been the Shadowcast, and I would like to remind each and every one of you that we are the assassination. Bye-bye.